Hello everyone. In this presentation titled Fake News and Elections, I will be exploring the rise of fake news and its relation with elections in the United States. I want to thank Professor Ha for her help with this research. As technology has advanced, information has been able to travel around the world at increasingly quick times. People are able to connect and share ideas with each other instantaneously. This has led to a growing number of places where news articles can be created and published. People online are exposed and have access to a very wide variety of news stories. However, not everything that is published online is factual. Many organizations created online have been purposefully creating and distributing fake news for both profitability reasons, along with trying to influence public opinion about certain issues and individuals. Fake news can have troublesome consequences that change society. For instance, in recent years, fake news during elections in the United States has been a topic of much discussion. During the 2016 election, there were 760 million instances of Americans clicking on fake news stories, Alcott and Gensco 2017. As the power of the internet grows, so will the frequency of news stories which are not factual. The first step of this research process was to identify which websites were contributing to this issue of mass distributing fake news. In order to determine this, the use of fact-checking websites was necessary. According to the website factcheck.org, One American News has been frequently responsible for publishing countless fake news stories, many of which about an American election. One American News is a far right-wing news cable channel with a website that was established in 2013. Another cable news channel which has been flagged for distributing fake news is Fox News, another right-wing station. However, many of these stories exposed on factcheck.org do not come from cable news channels, but rather small websites. For instance, there are many websites which describe themselves as satirical and release fake news stories which make up fake news stories about all political spectrums. Some of these websites include WTOE5, which was responsible for the widely distributed fake news stories in 2016 that the Pope had endorsed Trump, Blue News Network, and Daily World Update. Many satirical websites only exist for a short period of time before they cease operations. However, there are also many small websites spreading fake news with a political agenda, like Breitbart News Network, Wendy Bell Radio, and Daily Kos. These websites create stories which aim to influence and enrage voters in order to vote for a certain candidate or political party. Yet, fake news does not widely get shared just through these websites. The individual would have to search the website or a title of an article published by one of the websites to find the fake news. This requires an additional level of work in order to spread the non-factual stories. However, with social media, people can share these stories with millions of people. Fake news websites rely on social media for a much higher share of their traffic, Alcott and Gensco 2017, page 222. Through social media, these fake news stories can show up on people's screens as they scroll through. Essentially, the news stories come to them instead of the person having to find it themselves. This translates to fake news stories being able to be shared more easily and frequently. A lot of fake news stories have untraceable origins due to social media as well. For instance, memes which contain non-factual information about certain candidates can spread across social media without it coming from a trackable source. Fake news media accounts, commonly referred to as bots, can also help mass distribute fake news articles across social media. People using social media will think the article is being shared by another real person. Using bots has become very common to spread fake news and to manipulate voters with fake accounts during election periods. Yuri Lakaya and Aslan, 2020, page 184. Social media fuels the distribution of fake news. In order to fully understand what influence fake news has on elections, it is critical to be aware of what the fake news stories are about. These patterns can help answer what values, emotions, and goals the fake news stories hope to influence. The first trend is the use of celebrities in fake news stories. Frequently, these stories involve a celebrity endorsing a political candidate. For example, in October 2016, WTOE5 falsely reported that the Pope had endorsed then-candidate Donald Trump. However, there are also many fake stories about celebrities having positive or negative comments about certain candidates. While in some cases the celebrity may have even said the comments, the news outlet creating the story takes their words out of context and make it appear as if they are saying something else. For instance, the website Conservative 101 took a series of comments by actor Tom Hanks to make it appear as if he was in support of Donald Trump in the 2016 election. Another observation to note is that many of the fake news articles try to instill fear and anger in voters. These stories are designed to enrage and motivate voters to go to the polls in order to stop something bad. For instance, the website titled America's Last Defense published a story during the 2020 election cycle which falsely stated that Democrats, including House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, were stealing money from Social Security in order to pay for the impeachment of President Trump. Many of these stories play into bigger conspiracy theories. Another example comes from a meme shared by the blog Patriot Journal, which falsely stated the benefits immigrants are able to obtain, which was spread during the 2018 election. This meme was designed to enrage traditionally conservative voters through xenophobic tactics over benefits received by immigrants, yet none of the benefits were truthful. Furthermore, there was also a heavy set of fake news that used wrong data and policy positions in order to get a non-factual message across. These fake articles hope to persuade voters through policy. For instance, during the 2018 election cycle, the Postilion published a false story which claimed President Trump was planning on enacting a policy which would deport all Native Americans to India. A second example, which spread through several gun rights websites in the lead-up to the 2010 midterms election, stated that the Obama administration was planning on raising the federal tax on gun ammunition by at least 500%. These trends are largely visible when visiting fake news websites in the lead-up to an American election. The creation of fake news is like a science. Through studying patterns, it became clear that every story was carefully designed to attract the attention of readers and create emotions within them. For example, the authors of the articles with fake data specifically picked out numbers and percentages which would lead to a response by the viewer. In order for deceptive data to be effective, the data should elicit an emotional response. Justice and Duraj, 2019, page 173. Fake news is crafted with the main goal in mind of tapping into people's fears and emotions. It seeks to manipulate and change a person's perspective. When fake news includes topics which people care about, such as their beliefs, desires, and fears, it helps try to enrage them. Furthermore, when these articles discuss fake personal issues, the reader compares their moral values with that of the candidate or party. This is a business of creating lies in order to benefit a certain person, organization, or cause. If non-factual articles fail to play with people's minds, then it will not make any long-lasting impact. Authors and publishers take time to come up with ideas about stories which they know will feed anger, fear, and excitement in the minds of voters. Fake news is created to be emotion-eliciting propaganda. The next step in further researching this project would be to determine what influence fake news has over voters. It is evident that fake news is designed to instill emotions within viewers, but further study is needed to see if non-factual articles can impact the result of elections. One method to determine the influence that fake news has on voters is through a survey. The survey would ask voters which news sources they used and visited in the lead-up to an election. In addition, it would also question if voters get their news from social media, and if so, what pages they follow. By determining how many voters or visited organizations which are known to publish fake news stories, I can conclude how frequent voters come across fake news stories. A higher frequency likely means that fake news does help influence election outcomes. Based on a previous survey that was conducted after the 2016 election, it concluded that the average American saw an average of 3 fake news stories in the lead-up to the election. Furthermore, the survey displayed titles of fake news articles to voters and asked them if they remembered seeing the story. Some of the articles were never published, and some were. This study found that the average adult remembered 1.14 fake news stories. Alcott and Gensko, 2017. However, it is important to note that not all non-factual articles' titles were included in the survey, so the number may be higher. This study demonstrates that fake news does have an impact on American elections. If the average adult interacted with several fake news articles and remembered one of them, this means fake news articles were in the minds of voters when casting their ballots. While voters also remembered television advertisements, since fake news can be difficult to spot when it plays with people's emotions and beliefs, it may have a bigger impact than a voter seeing a television ad which they know is paid by a candidate or organization. Alcott and Jones Co. 2017. If these patterns continue in more surveys, it would show that fake news has the power to change election outcomes. Fake news is a growing threat to democracy. While non-factual articles are created by international organizations, many are also being created domestically. Rogers and Yeders 2020. This means that a large part of the threat to democracy is coming from within. American democracy has endured many conflicts over its short life, but organizations manipulating the facts may be its downfall. Voters cannot make accurate decisions without there being truth. Democracy cannot survive in a storm of lies. Thank you for listening.